And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about the NBA draft, and we're talking about three players that I hope the Chicago Bulls do not overlook as the NBA draft approaches. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. We are talking about the NBA draft as it is just 3 days away. And I wanted to throw out three prospects that we've already covered that I hope the Chicago Bulls do not overlook. And so this is in no particular order, but I wanted to go ahead and I want to start with Derik Queen. And so Derik Queen has not worked out with the Chicago Bulls. And there have been the rumors that he just did not test very well at the NBA draft combine. And so you saw that his draft stock looked like it was going down. Then it started to come back up. He's starting to be mocked to the Chicago Bulls. In fact, we talked about this before that I think on their most recent ESPN one, he was going to the Chicago Bulls. And so I still am very high on Derik Queen. I think that with Derik Queen, really, it's the fact that he's a winning player. I thought that he was a winning player at the University of Maryland, and I think that that is really what the Chicago Bulls need when it comes to turning it around. You need a player that is a winner, that is going to establish a winning culture and an identity for this team. And so Derik Queen with his numbers, I think very solid, 16.5 points per game. I love the fact that he's getting you 9 rebounds a game, 1.1 with the blocks, 76.6% from the free throw line, 1.9 assist a game, just 20% from downtown, and 52.6 from the field. So, the things of concern would be the 3-point shooting. And I understand that because you do want, a big that can step out there and make the defense honor it. But I just think that he's very crafty with the things that he can do on the inside. And also, too, he just reminds me of a player that had some success with the Chicago Bulls. And my player comp for him was an Elton Brand. And I think he reminds me a bit of Alperen Şengün that plays for the Rockets. And so, both of those players were not players that necessarily were on the perimeter, but they're players that are very crafty. And I think that you see a lot of the similarities with Derik Queen with the way that he's able to face up, the way that he's able to get to certain angles on the floor and make it tough for defenders. I think that he has really a great feel for the game. I think he has a terrific hands as well. So the catching is going to be there for you. And I also think that playing off ball, I think he's going to be solid there defensively as well. And I think he just has a good balance to him. And I just feel like that there's a lot of upside with Derik Queen. And so I hope that this is a player that the Chicago Bulls do not overlook. And I just think that he would be a solid for the team. And so the next player that I think the Chicago Bulls should certainly take a look at, and this is a player that has been talked about a lot as far as maybe being a potential fit here for the Chicago Bulls, and that is going to be Thomas Sorber. I think that Thomas Sorber really, he's terrific. I mean, at 6'10", 205, or 225, averaged 14.5 points a game, 2.4 assists, 53.2% from the field. He shot 72.4 as far as his free throw percentage, only 16.3 from 3. But man, he was terrific, especially on the defensive end. I go back and I look at what was said, I believe in his Ringer profile, where it said that there's simply aren't many college players in the past 20 years who have had the steal and block rates and also average fewer than 3 fouls per 40 minutes. And so just talking about how spectacular he was on the defensive end without fouling. And so we love that because that is something that this team absolutely needs. They need defensive presence. And I feel like that that is the first thing that Thomas Sorber would be able to give this team is a real defensive presence. Next, I think that his quickness, man, I think he's pretty solid that way. I think he's definitely a strong player. He's certainly a player that can go out there and react as well. He reminds me a little bit of a Kayvon Looney, an Al Horford / maybe a little bit of a Wendell Carter Jr. And so those are the player comparisons that I can kind of see with him. And I think that when you're talking about getting a post presence, I feel like that Thomas Sorber would certainly be a player that is going to give you a post presence. I think that you can dump it down to him. I think that you can go ahead and let him go to work. I think that that's something that he can get even better at, with being a bit more crafty down on the box, because I think that that's where I like Derik Queen a lot more, with the fact that he's a little bit maybe more crafty, but not taking anything away from Thomas Sorber. I think that he can definitely get to that level. And I love the fact that he plays with a high effort and motor level as well. And so I think that that's something that you love about him. The fact that he can play under the basket with either hand and finish that way, I think that that's going to be a plus for him. And I think just really the question mark is, will he be able to expand his game a little bit more, much like Derik Queen? You know, I just talked about the percentages for both of them from the 3-point line. Not very good, but still, that's not everything, because if you have a player that can command just respect down there in the paint, it's going to open some things up. And if he can be a player that can at least shoot the mid-range jumper, that is something that can also kind of, extend out a defense and make it difficult for him to be guarded as well. And so I think that that's probably going to be the biggest question mark. But I would love to see the Bulls go with him. Hopefully they don't overlook him, because remember, he did have a foot injury. And so that could be something that would be a cause of concern. And maybe it could be something that the Bulls could look over. He also is not listed as a player that worked out for the Chicago Bulls. And so next, and the last player that I want to talk about today is going to be Cedric Coward. I think that I love his game a lot. And for me, I just love the fact that I see a player that could really be either a 2 or a 3. And I just think that the upside is probably what I'm banking on with him. At 6'6", 205, he averaged 17.7 points per game. He got better from the 15.4 points per game. So I love when we talk about a player that gets progressively better. He shot 40% from 3. He got 7 rebounds, and that came up from 6.7 rebounds, 3.7 with his assist. That was better than 1.7. And so he's definitely a player that got progressively better. The blocks got better, 1.7 blocks up from the 0.9. He shot 83.9% from the free throw line, 55.7% from the field. And I just feel like with his length, his athleticism, the ability to catch and shoot, and also to his post game / mid game, like I love that when I look at his highlights and things like that. And I just see a player, to me, that he's definitely a player that translates to a 3-and-D type of player. And he just does the little things on defense with his effort level and things like that, that I just feel like could really turn it around for this team, because that is going to be huge for me. I think just going out there and playing some defense. But with him, can be overlooked because he did have a shoulder surgery, which ended his season. And so that might be something that could maybe, to take the Chicago Bulls away from him, or I shouldn't say take them away, but maybe they would look elsewhere because of the shoulder injury. But I think that he's a high impact type of player. I'm thinking that, look, he can be out there like a Ayo Dosunmu, a player that can bring the energy on both ends of the floor. I think he is probably going to need to just really put it all together. He picks up his dribble a bit too quick for me sometimes. So I think that that's something that is questionable there. So he's got to get a little bit craftier there. But, I see sometimes when I look at him, and I see shades of like a Kawhi Leonard type of player when I look at some of the things that he looks like on his highlights and stuff like that. But definitely a player that I would love the Chicago Bulls to take a look at. Hopefully they do not overlook him, because I do think that he could be a high impact player. And so I think all of these players can. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here, what do you guys think about these 3 players? We're going to be talking about more players that I'm hoping that the Chicago Bulls do not overlook as we continue to move closer to the NBA draft. Remember, we're about 3 days out. And so I'm going to go back through. We'll look at some of the prospects that I think the Chicago Bulls should take a look at. But you guys let me know down below, out of these 3 players, are you in on these players, or you're no on these players? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.